want to
Just
just
off the
instantly
top of my head.
gravitate toward the Masters because it's Masters weekend, but you're
Oh
so
yeah,
right.
yeah. No, that's fine. Who's your guy?
Okay, well, oh, my guy is Rory McIlroy, and he sucks right
Yeah,
now.
he's not doing very
So
well.
that's a major issue. But I do. A lot of people are backlashing against my boy Brooks Koepka, and I understand
Ugh.
that. Yeah, I know. But I've been Brooks from the start, and I really, for some reason, still love Brooks. And the fact that I'm gonna go check his score right now, actually. But
Did you watch Full Swing
sure
on
did. Yeah,
Netflix?
we could.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. I think it's hard because you're comparing to F1, which is like hard to compare to because that was like
hmm
such a like riveting, action packed, like just like drama. But I thought it was good. Like I thought Full Swing was good. Like I thought the one with Joel Damon was awesome.
yeah. No, I thought it was really good. I just didn't like the way that Brooks was in Full Swing, and I know that's just a short inside look of what he's like, but it just didn't. And then I didn't like him at the Panthers game, chirping at Ekblad.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. Like that was a bit much. And also he's wearing like an old like 90s style zip up sweatsuit. Like
Yeah,
I didn't really
the
I didn't
gabagool.
Yeah. Okay, but I
uh,
would love to know is there actually like a golf tournament you would like to go to other than the Masters? Like do you follow golf pretty
Not like religiously. I mean, I follow the big tournaments. Masters definitely. Masters I always like because it reminds me of like end of the hockey season, playoff
Yeah.
times coming, and usually the team does like a draft or some sort of pool, and it gets pretty fun. So I always like that, and I'll always try to do some sort of pool or something where I can follow guys, and I think that part of it's fun. But like, I mean, waste management, I guess, would be the one that's like everyone talks about. That just seems like a fun time.
Did you see the clips yesterday of so they mic'd up Rory McIlroy and Max Homa during their round, like while they were like hitting shots and then like while they were hitting putts. Like they had
I
like an
didn't see it.
earpiece in. So there's like a lot of people are like, why would they do that? But I think it was so cool because instantly afterwards they both played like really well afterwards because they're like well this is just going to distract them from this and I now even relate it to like Emily Kaplan doing like mid-game interviews with the coaches. Like I think it is immersive, and I think there is like value in being able to get those like on hand emotions from these guys who are a part of this.
Yeah,
So I
yeah, I
don't know.
agree. No, I agree. I mean, it's really cool too. And like, I think eventually, like athletes in general are gonna have to like get rid of that mindset of like, oh, this is gonna bog me down for my performance or whatever it is. Like, I don't want to be mic'd up. Like you got to get rid of that because at the end of the day, the people that are watching the games, the people that are really embracing that content and loving that content, are the people that just like love to watch you play and love the sport. So I don't know.
And
That's my
speaking
thought.
of love, I have a major love for one record. Wow, what a transition that just was. Claps. I have a major love for one record in particular, and that's Campfire Chords by the Arkells. Max Kerman from the Arkells, the lead singer, the TikTok extravagant influencer that he is, joined us for the show. And I mean, I've been fortunate to meet Max a couple times now, and I say it in the show, but he is one of the most attentive, one of the most respected, one of the most respectful, one of the most just pure love for conversation. And I think that's something that I instantly gravitated towards with Max is just like how much love he has for people and like how much love he has for making sure people feel welcome and accepted and make sure that he's doing his part and lending a hand. And yeah, Campfire Chords is one of my favorite records. I put it on a it's a perfect Sunday morning with your coffee. It's he talks about how they did it during COVID, but it's so soothing, and he is such a good lyricist and just such a good human being. And I know this was a kind of a spur of the moment podcast, and Riles had to find a spot in the hotel he's at right now to try and record. But I know, I mean, I am so fortunate that he joined us, and so fortunate that he shared a little bit about the I guess the ins and the outs of being where he's at and the position that they're in with the Arkells, and you know how tasking that can be, and also how rewarding at the very same time. So yeah, what'd you think, Rouse?
Yeah, it was unreal. I mean, like I said at the end of the podcast, like I grew up on music like the Arkells, and um, especially being Canadian, being from 45 minutes away from where I'm from, um, you gravitate to those bands a little more. So it was really cool getting to have some conversation, and he just seems like such a genuine person, um, and he's present when he talks to you. And we had some meaningful conversation, which was nice. And yeah, we just really enjoyed it.
Yes, and as always, I'm on a current heater of 3 is a streak, and I think I only have 2 straight so far. But New Tune Tuesday is it's every Tuesday, so buckle up and join for the ride, and see which song you're feeling each week, and join us on the Speak Your Mind Instagram at speak your underscore mind. Yeah, if you can help us get the actual Speak Your Mind podcast Instagram handle, that'd be great. But please enjoy our boy Max Kerman. What are you drinking? An aha? Oh,
And
nice.
aha, yeah, that's what's getting
I
me through.
like that. How was LA?
LA was great. Are we recording now properly? Is this
Yeah,
how we
yeah,
start? Is this how we start the pod?
we're ready to go.
Nice. Yeah, LA was good. I went down with my friend, a childhood friend of mine, Matt, who's like a screenplay writer, and our manager Ash. It's kind of good to be there. I feel like there's. I mean, a lot of the music business and entertainment business is down there, but it's for me. Obviously the epicenter for entertainment is Toronto when it comes to Canada. But you kind of get to know everybody, and you kind of going to get into similar rhythms. But when you go to somewhere like New York and LA, and these are places that like everybody in the entire country congregates to if they want to try to make it, just the level of like hustle and talent, just sort of variety of skill. It's just like you're kind of reminded that it's a big old world out there, and I think that's important because it's like very easy to sort of like kind of get stuck in your like narrow view of what the world is. But it's the same thing when you go traveling. It's just like, oh yeah, there's a lot of people out here living their lives that I never would have thought of. And I kind of like the feeling of being small. It's just like, oh, it kind of, I think you appreciate people and their experiences a little bit more when you're not just like in your own four walls every day.
Were you ever drawn out there? Like, were you guys as a band ever drawn out to one of those big time cities? I mean, obviously Toronto, like you said, is one, but um, like going to LA or New York that way.
Yeah, we've recorded a lot in LA. We've done a few
Yeah,
records down there, so we've spent a lot of time down there. And so much of our job is touring, so like we don't really have a central location um, other than just being at home. So I think it's easy enough to kind of hop back and forth between those hubs when you need to be there, and if you want to be there. Some people don't want to be there. Like I think there's guys in the band that are perfectly
yeah.
content with just like being at home when they're at home. But I'm a bit of a busybody, so I'm like, all right, let's do stuff.
And even like, I mean, obviously, like you said, artists are going to travel, bands are going to travel. Like, where do you find like the best places where you feel as though like this is where I can collaborate the best? Like, this is
Mm.
where my people can like, my people and these people like just like align and resonate with each other really well. Like, is there a certain spot?
It's funny. I deliberately try not to get superstitious about that because I think as soon as you get superstitious about like I can only create on Tuesdays afternoon after I've had two coffees and the sun is hitting the window, just like I try not to get in that zone. I
Yeah.
try to be as open minded as possible. I think I know what I like. And what I like is to be around people I'm creatively comfortable around, sharing my thoughts and feelings and knowing that like a lot of ideas are going to be bad, but that's okay. That's all part of the journey. Because as soon as you kind of are hanging around like naysayers or people that are like antagonistic or going, oh, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, like then I'm like, I don't want to hang out there. And I think for me, it's like this is like a very particular thing to musicians, but most bands, especially when you're starting out, have no money. Most musicians have no money, like generally speaking. And so you're relegated to these places like in the outer boroughs of the city, and they're like windowless shitholes, and they smell. And there's like a metal band playing next to you in the room over, and you're just like, I like those places are creatively so uninspiring. And so I'm like, okay, if there's some like natural light and like a just an upright piano and just like a that's all I kind of need. And like, is there a coffee shop nearby that I like to go to? You know what I mean? Like, I think those are the things that I kind of care about. And also, I've had a lot of great creative partnerships with producers that we've worked with other songwriters that we've worked with lighting people, with guitar techs, with people that work on our music videos, with people at the label. These are all creative people, and I really I genuinely like get off on meeting people that like have a little bit of wind in their sail and I'm learning from, and I'm just sort of like seeing the world a little bit differently when I'm around them. So yeah, I don't know. So I try not to be superstitious, I guess, is
Yeah.
the short answer.
Anyone that we would know that you've learned from, like any name that would stand out to us that we would know from like mainstream music or anything that has had a big
Mhm.
influence on you?
Oh, I mean, we've learned so much from like everybody that we've toured with over the years. Like each band kind of or artist provides like a different lesson, and we're just sort of stealing tricks from them,
Mhm.
like everywhere we go. So it's just, I think so part of it's keeping your eyes peeled. But I mean, we toured with the Tragically Hip across the country,
Yeah.
and we recorded our second record at their studio in Bath, Ontario, the Bathhouse, where they did a lot of their work. It's just outside of Kingston. And one memory that sticks out. Well, first of all, the guys were all very gracious to us, and they overpaid us as opening band. Paul would always be having a cigarette out by the back exit, and he'd spend time, and he'd answer every fucking annoying question that I had, and it was just like very complimentary and patient with us. But I remember one time at dinner, we were in catering, and Gord was there, and Gord starts telling me the story about how he was driving around the county, Prince Edward County, with his son. And it was like a summer day. And he was talking about showing his son, who was like 10 at the time, The Who. And he's like, it's really important when you're listening to The Who that you turn it up to 11. Because when you get to the top of the mountain, when you get to that apex, when Daltrey's about to scream, it's like that's when you feel alive. Like he kind of gave me this like great little anecdote. I was just kind of really enjoying it. Anyway, later that night, he's on stage doing his like one of his classic like Gord diatribe spoken word poetry thing, like while the band's jamming. And he starts to tell that story about driving around the county. I was like, "Oh, you're just workshopping your shit on me." I was like, I love that. This guy's like on. He's always focused. He's always thinking about the show, and that's what makes him good. I mean, and I relate to that in a way because it's like when we're on tour, like the entire day. I don't know how fun I am to be around on tour. Like so I think I'm fine to be around on tour, but I'm not like chilled out, just like kind of going through the day. Not like I'm kind of in the zone the entire day because I'm thinking about, okay, like what do I want to talk about tonight? What's the set list going to look like? What's happening in the world? How am I referencing that? Are we playing a special cover? Like, so I'm really engaged in the show, like from the minute I wake up to the showtime. And so to see Gord also kind of in that process of being like, okay, I want to be able to tell a story tonight, and I'm going to workshop it on Max at catering this afternoon. It's
He
cool.
was waiting for your reaction. If you didn't give him the reaction that he wanted, he
Yeah,
wouldn't have said anything. Then
yeah,
that's
totally.
hilarious.
Yeah, even with like the instant thought that comes to my mind when you say like when you're prepping for shows and stuff is just like I think I've seen you like 3 times now, but the last show when you brought up all the Waldos in Calgary, and there's like 40 Waldos on
Yeah,
stage
it's
with
crazy.
you, and I'm thinking to myself, how do you prepare for like, and it's so much of like being in the moment, and I think
Mm,
I've had a couple conversations with you, and you are very in tune with your own like emotions, and you are very in tune with like your own wherewithal and your own awareness. So like, how does that how does that shift the show? How does that how does that even just like change everything? And also like
hmm
trying to get 40 Waldos off the stage can't be easy.
Oh my god. I feel like they were going to collapse the stage too. I was like, get the fuck off the stage. So yeah, so I think part of my job is keep my eyes peeled because the guys in the band, like they have a lot of musical duty up there. Like there's a lot of arrangement and just like functionally playing the songs that are really important. I kind of get to be a cheerleader up there. I've sort of abandoned my guitar for half the show. So part of my job is just keeping my eyes peeled. So it's just like I go in with a game plan, but I'm also, like I'm on Twitter and I'm like looking at people that are bringing signs like, oh, we're bringing the sign to the show. I'm like, okay, I know that sign's going to be in the crowd. Maybe I'll find it and we'll do that request later. So I think it's like a big part of my job is to make sure that something special happens at every show, something that is completely unique to that night. And I really do try to be in the moment by looking at the crowd, just simply that. Like, and it's took me a while to get there, but when I realized like that's actually kind of a power. If you can make a connection with somebody or something that's only going to happen that one night and make something of it, that can send everybody home happy. And I think it's like, I remember just seeing that group of people that were all dressed up as Where's Waldo, which is just fucking hilarious. It was like a few days before Halloween. I was like, okay. And then I started thinking to myself, okay, where would it be fun to bring them up? Like, what is the moment in the set where it'd make most sense that there's like an interlude happening? It's not going to disrupt the flow of the show. And I was like, okay, I think the moment, and this is just me processing in real time, the moment's probably My Heart So Is Yours, because we do this breakdown where we get everybody to, sway side to side, put their arms around their neighbors. And it's this really heartfelt thing. I was like, hey, I think that's the moment. And they all came up on stage. I brought them to the front of the catwalk. And I almost collapsed the catwalk, and I was like, get the fuck off the catwalk. And then our tour manager Eric was like, can we not do that, please, like next time, like, or can we like cut it at like 10 people instead of 20? But yeah, you learn. But there's a couple of times we've done that with like people come up on stage where if it's like an older rink, the stages are just a little more rickety and it's just like not good. It's like there's a few times where I'm like, fuck, this is gonna collapse. Anyway.
That's got to be something that excites you. Like, I know I work with a life coach, and our latest conversation we talked about like what his quote was, choose your hard. And for me, like as a hockey player, like I'm in this moment right now where I'm not sure if I want to keep playing, and the past has been great, but the future doesn't look to be easy. Like he's saying choose your hard. So like hockey, yeah, that's hard, but your next moment in life is hard. So it's kind of like choose your hard. But then it's trying to find those times during your life that you can appreciate things and have a spark and create some more excitement kind of out of maybe things that get to be pretty routine. And to me, when I look at musicians, I love music so much, like I think in my head like you're going to shows over and over and you're playing the same songs, and that can get probably pretty routine, and maybe you lose like that the gratitude behind it, and you can kind of get sucked down that hole. And I wonder if you can like speak to that at all after maybe the end of a tour and you have to play those last few shows. Like what kind of brings that spark to your excitement?
Yeah, it's a great question because you're right. Like things can kind of become pretty commonplace pretty quickly on tour, and it can become a little bit like Groundhog's Day. So then, I think it's really important, again, just to kind of like get out of the four walls of your mind, right? Like I think it's so, and you do that by going to other shows, right? Like sometimes you'll go see another band and they'll blow you away, and that'll inspire you, or that'll make you go, oh, we should steal that bit. You'll I listened to a podcast recently with Matt Healy from the 1975, and I love that band. Their live show is like so ambitious and impressive, and it's kind of like everything I want. I haven't seen too many bands I'm like do a thing better than the thing that I think that we do. Like I'm very like confident in what we do, but I saw the 1975. I was like, man, these fucking guys are like on to something. Like this is so like, and I loved it. I think it was. I was like, I wasn't even jealous. I was like smiling the whole time, and it made me so pumped to try to like do something ambitious for our own band. And he said something like, we try to pick 5 new things to do every show that are just a little bit different. It doesn't have to be a huge thing because obviously they have their set list, they know what they're going to do. But like there's 5 little moments that'll keep it interesting for us on stage, even if the crowd doesn't even know there's any difference. And I was like, oh, that's a great, like really simple, pointed piece of advice that we can learn from. And I mentioned to the guys, we had like a private gig a couple days ago. And I said to the guys, I was like, guys, 1975 do this. Like they pick 5 things just to kind of try to keep it interesting for themselves. And so, yeah, I think that's like, I don't know. I feel like I am the most alive and feel the most excited about work when like I stumble onto like a new idea that makes me like that much more excited about writing a new song or putting on a show. But you kind of got to do it by going out and interacting with the world, like because I think
Yeah.
it's very easy to kind of get stuck in your own ways if you're not interacting with the world.
And
Yeah,
even
for
like
sure.
obviously interacting with the world and interacting with other artists and figuring out, what makes them tick, what works for them and all this. But at the end of the day, it's hard to do that when you're not in the right like mental state and like in
Hmm.
the right mental well-being. And so on this tour, while you're continuing to find these new sparks and while you're trying to continue to be spontaneous and try new things, what is it like during your day to day that keeps you grounded? Like, I mean,
Hmm.
obviously it's exciting. You got a new show, whether it's in Calgary, whether it's in Vancouver, whether it's in LA, wherever it may be. But there's obviously that those moments where it's like, I got to do something. This has got to be my day a little bit. And you said it perfect.
Hmm.
Where it's like, I'm not really going to talk to a ton of people. Like, I'm kind of just going to do my thing. So, what is that? Like, obviously, don't get too in depth or anything, but like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, no, and it's funny too. It's because it's like I think I'm pretty like optimistic and upbeat by nature, but there's a lot of touring that's like really hard because it's like it's the physical toll it takes on you is the sleeps are weird because you're on a tour bus. The nature of the day is weird because you're sort of like ramping up to be like peaking at like 9 o'clock. And it's also you're stressed because you want to do a good job. Like you ask yourself these like existential questions. Rather, I'm sure you've probably thought you're like, what am I doing with my life? Like I'm this age, like
Don't even get me
how?
started.
No, right? No, and I feel the same way. Sometimes we'll be like playing a small show in Germany, and I'm like, do I need to be here? So you ask yourself these questions, and that can be hard, right? And you're away from your family and your friends, and there's other shit that you could be doing. So I think like the only thing you can really do, and this goes just for like any sort of like good mental health practice, is like pretty simple. It's like get a good night's sleep, don't eat like shit, try to exercise, try to read a fucking book and get off your phone, don't booze a lot. Like I don't know, like don't do drugs. Like it's kind of the same for everybody. And I think that like when I'm on tour, like I try to do that. Like I try to like wake up at a good time. I try to get my best sleep. I try to go to a coffee shop in the morning, have a lot of me time where I can read. I can take care of emails. I try to like interact with new people in whatever neighborhood I'm in. I try to phone home to friends and catch up to see what they're doing, and that's all you can kind of do. That's all we can ever do. Like regardless of what your job is, it's like it feels like the recipe is kind of the same no matter what line of work you're in.
Isn't it crazy too, like how much different mental health practices have like caught on, but like we forget about just like the simplest ones
Like
to like
fresh air. Like honestly,
focus
just
on.
get some fucking fresh air. Like a little bit of sunshine and fresh air is like better than just about anything.
Like people are trying to do like even like meditation I find is really difficult. And like, I mean, Ty and I, we've talked about the cold tubs and cold showers, which are great, but
That's
it's
all.
also like it's like really hard for a lot of people too. Like, but then we just want to jump right to these things that are harder and trendy rather than just like what you said, focus on things that are simple.
No, totally. It's funny. I have a friend who works as a nurse at CAMH, and she was telling me that like just bringing the clients there just outside, just like bringing them like out and like kicking a soccer ball around is literally probably like the best thing they can do for themselves, just because like they're getting outside, they're like not in the four walls of the hospital room. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sort of obsessed with walks. Like honestly, like I exercise, I play some sports, but like our manager Ash and I, like when we're not on tour, and actually when we're on tour, go for walks probably 2 hours a day, and we're just talking through ideas. We're calling people. We're just like walking around Toronto, just calling people with ideas, and it's way more fun than being in an office. I don't know.
No, I just want to instantly relate it to like COVID, because
Hmm.
I mean, I now that I've got to spend some time with you, like you are so bubbly and you are so like people loving and you are so like you are engaged in conversations, you're attentive, like you're, inspired by other people. So like I'm just trying to wrap my head around how that process was for you, like when things started to unravel and
Hmm.
you're trying to find alternate ways and alternate outlets. And obviously, I mean, you like you said, you're a big caller. I am too. Like if I do a 2 hour drive back home, like I'm on the phone for probably an hour and a half of it.
Yeah.
Like I really enjoy talking to people,
Yeah.
and
Me
half the
too.
time it's just like spur of the moment calls, like, "Hey, like
Checking
I don't
in.
have,
What's up? Tell
yeah,
me something. Yeah.
I don't have anything on the docket. Like I just want to talk." And so you have a very valuable relationship with Nick Nurse, Ron McLean, all these
Hmm.
people that aren't necessarily in the sports world, but still or in the entertainment music world, but still understand that space. So
Hmm.
like, how did that even begin to? How did that work for you?
Just like working through COVID, you mean, or just like
Yeah.
yeah, it was interesting because Yeah, it was a bit of a riddle to be solved because it was a really hard time for musicians who couldn't tour and didn't know exactly what to do with themselves. But I'm really lucky. Ash is like my partner in crime. She's the band's manager, and you know, she has a similar motor to me that she just like, okay, let's like do something. Let's like, and it all kind of comes from like this place of like, can we entertain ourselves? That's like kind of what it all comes. It's like this is exciting and entertaining for us. Like the rolling out a new song, putting out a new album, announcing a new tour, like anything we're doing is always just kind of in service of like, let's have a fun time together. And when people weren't allowed to be in the same room together, the question was like, okay, how do we do anything right now? And so we were going to put out Blink once, but then we're like, but no one wants to like rock out in the middle of a pandemic. You're not allowed to rock out in the middle of a pandemic. So we're like, all right, let's put that aside. I think the music that people want is like comforting music that they can play in their backyard or around a campfire or at a cottage or
Campfire
whatever.
chords.
That's right. So we invented campfire chords. That was never something that we were supposed to do, but we're like, okay, we can actually record this record remotely. Like Tony can start and lay down like a piano part. I can sing a vocal from home. Mike can then add his guitar part from his house. We weren't together for like 80% of the record. But it kind of just gave us something to do. And then like bit by bit, we had one song, 5 songs, 10 songs, and then we had a whole record ready to go, and it allowed us to like do some TV appearances, like City TV had like Budweiser Live at Home. I forget what the series was called, but we did like our own version of that to promote Campfire Chords. And Campfire Chords is like some people's like favorite Arkells record because it's just like, let's throw it on. It's like just good vibes. It feels good. We know all these songs. And that was just sort of a matter of being nimble and thinking like, okay, where are we at? What can we do? Where's the world at? And how can we interact with the world in like an honest and authentic way? And that's what we came up with. It takes a lot of like walking around and calling people. What do you think of this idea? Could we do this? How are we going to get the vinyl made? When should we put it out? Okay, there's a new song, Quitting You. Let's record that. But it was because we're reacting. It's like, and that's kind of the fun part about being a musician. It's like you want to do something that's true to you, and what's true to you is often like how you're interacting with the world outside.
How do you find that perspective being part of like a whole band too, right? Like you talk about your relationship with Ash, and then obviously you guys together, like it's a family, and it's like being part of a team. It's like being part of I mean, you have to appreciate other people's perspectives, and
Mm-hmm.
you can't always be thinking for yourself. I think that's like a really hard skill to learn, is to kind of, you have your perspective and you can't always follow that. You have to take other people's into consideration. I think a band is a perfect example of like how people can be cohesive together and come up with things that are successful, or whatever. So I mean, how do you find that process? And maybe even from like day one Arkells to current
Mm-hmm.
Arkells, how it's evolved.
Yeah, that's a great question because such an unusual job being in a band like ours. Because I met Mike and Nick when I was 17 years old, like first day of university, and I'm 36 now. Like and the first day I met them, I said, we're starting a band. I was like, you play guitar, you're in the band. Nick, you play bass, you're in the band. So we've been kind of colleagues for 20 years, which is kind of insane, right? Like like we met in September 2004, right? It's just like 19 years ago. And so we start this thing that's kind of for fun, but it's also like just a passion project that we're like excited to do, and it turns into this like career and this business enterprise. And like a lot of people aren't even friends with people they went to university with. It's like most people, like it's like the fact that you could still be not only friends but like colleagues with somebody for 19 years, and it's your own little family business. But it's not just like you're selling fucking like, I don't know, air conditioners or something like that. Like you're doing something that's really of you. You're right. It's not like, okay, yeah, we have I don't know, fucking chimney cleaning shit. Like it's like we're writing songs, right? Like we are pouring our heart and soul into the music. So it's this weird mix of the incredibly like sort of like creative side, and like the incredibly sort of personal and creative side of who we are, but also like we're adults, right? Like we need to like pay mortgages and we need to like make money, and like Tim and Tony have kids, right? And like, okay, like where's the college fund going, right? Like, so it's a weird business. It's just, it's kind of like unlike anything else that I can really think of because it's so deeply personal, but it's also our life. It's like our it's us being adults. So I feel really lucky that the band is an incredibly functional band and we all get along great and we all respect each other. And I think we're all, most importantly, I think we're all very self-aware of how unique it is to have the job that we have because we look around, I say this all the time, all the bands and peers that were putting out records in 2008, the first year that we put out Jackson Square, the year that we put our first record out, like aren't really bands anymore. There's like a few left, and it's not because those people are not great musicians or great songwriters or great performers or great bands. It's just that it's so fucking hard. It's just statistically, it is impossible to be a musician who writes their own songs and have a career. It's like, again, people never think about it in that terms. It's like they're like, no, but there's like the hip, and Our Lady Peace has been around a long time, and it's like, yeah, those are 1 in a million. No, Blue Rodeo's going pretty good. Blue Rodeo, it's like, yeah, they are. That's 1 in a million. Those guys are 1 in a million, and so to sort of be in that category, we're very aware that it's like a 1 in a million job. It's like an impossible job. So, but anyway, rather to answer your question, the band, each guy kind of has his own lane, and I think that's one of the reasons why I've been able to stay together for as long as we have. Is that like, Mike is really interested in visual art and he does all of our merch and he's really interested in guitar pedals and he plays a lot of guitar. Tony is an amazing piano player, musician, and he's helped like kind of produce a lot of our stuff. He went to school at Humber for jazz. Like Tim's an amazing drummer. Like you can't be in a rock band without being an amazing drummer. Like Nick is the most sort of like, he's an amazing bassist, but he's also an incredibly just like supportive person. Like he's somebody I lean on for emotional support, which is like equally important. And I don't think any of them really give a fuck about like what's our next TikTok post. And I happen to care about that. I like the creative challenge of like marketing the thing we wrote, or like promoting the thing we wrote, or like all the interacting with fans, or talking to our audience. Like I kind of enjoy it. I don't know. Like I like being in the mix with it, and those guys don't really give a fuck. so I think we're lucky that no one's really stepping on each other's toes in our band.
And I think you obviously need that, but especially now, I mean, you guys are phenomenal and you guys are continue to, put out amazing performances that, it's we talked about it before, it's hard to do, but also with these performances come a lot of, while you're still thinking about, okay, well, like I got to pay my mortgage, I got to do this and I got to do this in my life and I got to make this next TikTok. You still, I mean, I don't want to assume, but a major portion of especially what you do is you like to lend a hand and you like to interact. You like to make sure that these fan experiences are going to be one that they will forever remember. But also, I mean, there's been so many times, I'm sure, where you have received a message about somebody, whether it's listening to a song or was at a show, and they instantly open up and they instantly share their story. I know how that feels, and it's hard because you want to set boundaries for yourself and you want to have that balance of, okay, like I really I love this, and it's so refreshing to read that somebody is opening up to me because of our lyrics or because of a performance or because of this and that. But how do you, I mean, talk about that impact and talk about how profound it is to have that impact on your fan base and on your community, but also like how do you also then tread that line and figure out, okay, I gotta still stay in my lane. I gotta make sure I'm taking care of myself a little bit. So kind of a two-headed question there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's, one of the greatest gifts of putting out a song is like, having somebody connect with it. And I was listening to a podcast. There's like an electronic artist from England named S.G. Lewis who put out a new record recently, which is really good. And he was talking about like streaming and like how every musician is like obsessed with like what their numbers are like on Spotify or this or that. And he said, but he's like, honestly, the thing that like there's some songs that stream more than you think. There's other songs that you love that nobody seems to care about. But the thing that actually matters is playing the song in a room and seeing a couple like make out to it or someone cry to it. or somebody sing along to it. He's like, those things are worth millions more than any one stream. Like, you know what I mean? And I thought it was a beautifully put. I thought it was beautifully put, and the accurate way to think about how your music, uh, what your music might be able to do for somebody. And
Okay, I want to cut you off quick.
mhm.
I told Riles this because this is like resonates perfectly. I was listening to Luke Combs on Joe Rogan, and he was like, the first time he ever felt that he like made it. He's like, not. It's not like when people are just playing their songs in the car at a red light or anything. He's like, when I felt as though like people were connecting with my songs, it's when they're on a boat. It's when they're on the boat in the heat of summertime. And he will, I just want to put that in your head because I was like, that's so true. Like when when it's 35 degrees outside, the beers are cold, and you're putting on, an Arkells song, like that's when it's like, holy shit. Like, but anyways, back to your
No,
this.
it's so true. It's like to be a soundtrack to anybody at any point. It's great. And we've had songs, that deal with like heartbreak, and there's also a lot of love songs. So like, it feels like every Monday in the summertime we get like 10 emails to Manager Ash's email inbox, just saying like, here's a video of our first dance on Saturday of And Then Some Are Quitting You. And and we do a lot of shout outs, on
Yeah,
the side.
and then some was in our wedding playlist. It wasn't our first dance, but it was on our wedding playlist.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Is it? Yeah.
There's other songs like, well, even something like Knocking at the Door. People will be like, this is a song that pumps me up before I go to my chemo. Like, let's fucking go, and that's amazing. And there's our song Strong is about our friend Barb, who passed away of cancer. This beautiful person. She's a doctor. She's too young. She's like 32 when she passed. And people talk about that, and how that song has played a role in their life. I feel like, all things considered, we're like, I don't know why, but I've always said we've had a very like functional and sort of even mannered fan base. Like, people, like our audience is like super chill in the best way. Like we have some like intense fans, but it never gets too crazy. It's always just like pretty reasonable people that like our music, which I'm happy about. So there hasn't been too many instances where I'm like, can you like fuck off, please? Like, everyone's like kind of nice, and everyone's pretty chill. We're lucky about
Uh,
that.
Any stories that like stick out in your mind about where things got a little chaotic?
Fuck. Oh, I'm trying to think. I don't know if I have any good ones at the top of my mind.
I know you guys are
The-
different type of band than like I read Dave Grohl's book, and he was talking about when they were
Oh, yeah.
younger, and he said he just got a little too carried away, and I think he like smashed a guy in the front with like a microphone or guitar or something, and it turned out to almost a brawl in the back alleyway. I'm not
Uh,
saying that's an Arkells type thing, but maybe something.
no, I
Some,
de-escalate usually. Yeah, no, there are stories, but I don't remember them. I have a fabulously terrible memory.
well, I know you obviously got a busy day ahead, but I want to touch on one more major
Hmm.
aspect of your life that you have continued to be open with: therapy.
Yeah.
I would love to. I mean, we've had little conversations here and there before, but I mean that is something that I'm not going to make the whether it's because you're a man, whether it's because you're a major musician. I mean, there is a lot of things that could hold you back from
Hmm.
maybe sharing about the fact that you love therapy and you go to
Hmm.
therapy for a reason, and there is a lot that you can learn from therapy. I mean, talk about maybe any particular lessons that you learned from therapy that you are now able to implement into your, pretty
Hmm.
unorthodox, crazy, unique, fun life. But then also, like, is there anything that instantly resonates with therapy that you try to implement into like lyrical basis, or is it kind of just
Mm.
like that theme?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, so my dad's a social worker, and he does continuing education conferences for mental health professionals. So it's always been like around my house, and the idea of mental health, and therapists, and like it's been just like in our family for a long time. Um but yeah, I mean, I feel like it feels like it's maybe to some people that it's like this scary thing about like revealing yourself, But I don't feel like it's that different than just having another amazing friend who's good at giving advice. You know what I mean? And I love talking through, my problems of the day with my friends, and I'm a really smart, caring group of friends, that are great listeners and are there to give me a hug, and are there to give me advice. And the only difference between them and a therapist is the therapist like actually knows what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah.
And like is going to have a conversation with you through a different, like a little different lens, like a professional lens, and not just like a friend lens. And sometimes friends give terrible advice too. It's like, you know what I mean? So that's the kind of the way I conceive of it. It's just like, you know, if you do have a therapist, or if you're looking for one, it's just like try to find someone that you just like, you know, knows that they're there to help, and that they're there to, you know, care for you and work through problems. Because, you know, this is sort of a continuation of the conversation we've been having this whole podcast, which is just like, who is going to help you see the world a little bit differently? Who's going to make the world a little less blurry? That's like all I'm trying to do all day long, whether it's a creative problem, whether it's a business problem, whether it's a personal problem. I just like don't want to feel like shit. You know, like I want things to make a little bit more sense. I want to be able to like kind of get through the day with a smile. I want to get through the day knowing that there's a little bit of optimism coming from, like, you know, there's a little bit of hope, right? Like the tomorrow is going to be okay, right? And I think it's easy to kind of, when you're in a bad way, it's easy to kind of get stuck in like those existential like thoughts where it's like, you know, like things are not going to improve. And so yeah, I think that one thing that she did the other day, Charisse, Justice Charisse, she's great. She's like, write 3 columns, 3 vertical columns. And it was like, the left column was like my truth, the middle column was like everyone else's truth, and then the third column was God's truth. So she's like, just imagine there's like 3 lanes on a highway. I was like, okay. She's like, write down like what your truth is. I was like, what does that mean? She's like, things that you can control. I was like, okay. Like what I eat. She's like, yep. What I wear. Yep. Who I talk to. Yep. Blah, blah, blah. So as I go through all the things I can control today. Middle column is like everyone else's truth. So it's like, what is that for everybody else? It's like, well, literally the same as mine, but just for everybody else. She's like, exactly. And like God's truth. I was like, what's that? And she's not like, maybe she's a religious person. I don't even know. But she was just like, basically like things that are completely out of your control, which is like the weather, fucking accidents, sickness, and shit like that. Very simply, she was like, just try your best to stay like 85% of your day in your own lane. That's the only thing. Like you can veer into somebody else's truth, or you can try to, you might veer into like thinking about God's truth, like that has nothing to do with you. But for the most part, just try to stay in your fucking lane. Like just like get on that highway and just hang out and do the things that you can control. I was like, oh, that's a great metaphor. The imagery there was like helpful for me to think about, you know, because you end up saying too much in that middle lane, everybody else's truth, it just gets confusing, you know, it just gets hard. So that was a nice lesson that I thought was helpful.
That's great. I guess the one question I guess I was going to ask you when you were talking about the hip, and obviously the effects Gord Downey having, and maybe just like what came out of that final tour, and him putting his body on the line when he wasn't feeling great, and that whole thing. I mean, it affected so many people across Canada, but I don't know if it maybe affected you in a different way as a musician, knowing the grind, and just maybe what that meant to you. I was kind of interested in asking.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, it was an amazing like feat, and it was very emotional. Like, you know, I was at the Toronto show, and it's just like see him get through that. It's kind of unlike anything anybody's ever seen. It's just like, you know,
Yeah.
and I know how hard it was, and I know, you know, his memory was leaving him, and he was reading stuff off the teleprompter and stuff. But you know, I think, I don't know. I think that maybe how I relate to it is just like, you know, you got one life, like go, like make the most of it. I don't know. Like, and sometimes you wonder, like, because I have a lot of ideas, right? Like I want to do lots of stuff. And like, and sometimes I go, oh, is now the right time? And I was like, well, just do it. You know what I mean? Like, I think
Yeah.
there's so much to be said because when you do stuff, like this is so like obvious, but like it literally gives you something to do, which is better than doing nothing.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah,
true.
could that be my quote that gets passed around on Instagram?
Yeah.
When you do stuff, it literally gives you something to do. Can we end it there? And that's my mic drop moment. Uh, and I think, and honestly, I think there's something to be said for doing something because it makes you feel less bad about yourself because you're doing something. I don't know.
All right. We're gonna make sure that we emphasize that quote, but I want to finish on one thing.
So So poetic.
First off, you're playing in Red Deer this
Yeah,
summer,
yeah, come on up, man. I hope to see you there.
which would be dope. Yeah, and then I will see you in June at the Canadian Open again.
Yes.
Last summer it was the Lumineers we saw at Bud Stage. This
Yeah.
summer it's gonna be Dermot Kennedy.
Mm.
Um, I mean, I'm super excited, and I even like last time when I would peek over at you while we were watching the Lumineers, and you would just be like arms crossed, just like like just like so into the show, like trying to like how and like it was cool to hear that you are constantly analyzing and you are
Mhm.
constantly figuring out what works and stuff. My last question that I haven't actually really asked a musician ever.
Mhm.
Okay, dead or alive, you get one band or artist to see, and you get to pick the venue.
Mm.
Where are you going, and who are you seeing? Anybody that has ever lived on this earth.
Mm. I mean, poof, I mean, okay. I mean, I'd maybe see John Lennon playing acoustic songs like in a little cafe or something like that, just to hear
All
his
right.
voice. That would be cool. But I would also say like it'd be fucking. I saw Bruno Mars once. I really want to see Bruno Mars again because he's sort of amazing. Like just a combination of like he plays every instrument. He's an incredible singer. He's an incredible dancer. But it's not just about him. It's about the hooligans. Like so he brings his boys, and they're all dialed in. It's kind of and it's not like I like lots of choreography. I like lots of dance, different kinds of dance. But like those guys do it where it's like they're so locked in, but they also seem kind of drunk when they're doing it. It's like this perfect thing where it's not like Backstreet Boys where it's like super fucking dialed in. It's like it's sneaky dialed in, but they also look like
Yeah,
they're
they're
wasted. Like
feeling it.
they're
They're just
feeling it. It's
feeling it.
great.
Yeah.
So I think I aspire to do that.
Incredible. Well, yeah, I mean, Max, we can't thank you enough for obviously taking out the time. And for anybody like Best Hang podcast,
Yeah.
y'all are amazing and y'all are so much fun to listen to. I don't know if you want to touch on that at all, but I mean, it's
Yeah, well, I'll say that so I do this podcast with my buddies Shane and Mike, and one of the things I'm doing right now, I mentioned doing stuff. So they've created a show that'll be on Crave later this year called The Dessert. It's a sketch comedy show. I'm an executive producer on it. Ash is an EP on it. Bruce McCullough, Albertan from Kids in the Hall, he's also an executive producer on it. And I wrote the theme song, and it'll be coming out at some point this year. And so we've been all working really hard on that. And so now I get to say that I'm involved in a TV show, which is fun. It's a fun thing to do.
wicked,
That's
dude.
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. Rouse, I think that's yeah. If you got anything else,
No, that was great, man. I'm a huge music guy, and I grew up. I mean, from St. Catharines, Ontario, so right down the street from you, and grew up on Billy Talon and City and
Yeah. Yeah.
Color and you guys. So this was definitely one that I got excited for. So we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, guys. It's great to talk to you.